everyone, it's Michelle from Scrap Secrets, and welcome to card number 23 in the Countdown to Christmas card series for 2020. Today we're going to be making this card using some products from Honeybee Stamps and Concord and Ninth. The stamp set we're going to be using is called Farmhouse Tree Builder from Honeybee Stamps, and we're going to be using two inks from the Concord and Ninth ink line called Parsley and Clover. The piece of cardstock that I'm putting in my MISTI right now is some Bristol smooth white cardstock, and it's cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Now the stamp set we're going to use is a layering stamp set, and you guys know how much I love it. So I took the most solid piece, which is the base of the tree, put it towards the bottom of that piece of Bristol smooth cardstock, put it in my MISTI, and now I'm going to ink it up with the Concord and Ninth Parsley ink. I did have to ink it a couple of times because it didn't stamp solidly the first time. It's the first time I've ever used this stamp set, so that probably has something to do with it. I mean, I only showed it me inking it up one time, but I did have to ink it up 2 or 3 times. And now I'm going to take the second layer and just try to line it up as best as possible. These don't have to be absolutely perfect, which is the great thing about these layering stamps, is you don't have to get them exactly perfect and they still look good. So we're going to be using some clover for the second layer of this. And if you see the piece that I'm holding to actually press the stamp down, that's from the old Stamp-A-Majig. It has some felt on the bottom of it, so it runs really smoothly over the door of the MISTI, and it helps put pressure so you don't have to press down. I have an issue with my wrist, and during the winter time it really bothers me, so this has been very helpful. And you can see how realistic that tree looks. I love it. I love layering stamps for that specific reason. So I thought the next thing that I would do is use some Versamark ink and stamp the third layer on here. Now what I neglected to do was make sure that my ink was dry. It was not. So you're gonna see it came out with a different effect than what I originally intended, but I do like it. So I just took a piece of paper towel and ran it over the ink to, try to take off if there was any fingerprints or anything like that on there. Didn't help because clearly the ink wasn't dry, so it didn't matter. So I'm gonna ink it up a couple times with Versamark ink, stamp that third layer down, which is just like some little sparkles. You can use them as lights, just little twinkles on the tree, snow on the tree. Then I'm gonna use some Kindred Stamps embossing powder in Snow Sparkle and sprinkle it all over the front of the tree. Now again, this is where I realized that the ink is not dry, but I'm just going to go ahead with it. So you're not going to be able to see that third layer, but it's going to give a really nice sparkly impression to it. And then it's also going to resist the ink on top of it because we heat embossed it. Now I'm going to put the embossing powder back into the pot, put the lid back on, and then we're going to get the heat tool out. I have the new Wagner heat tool, which has settings 1 and 2, and I flipped it to setting 2 so that I could heat the tree. Now I did get a little bit of warping, so I do go from behind the paper and heat it to try to get rid of some of that warping. You can also lay it under your MISTI or under something heavy for overnight, or you can put it in your die cutting machine with no plate, with just in between the plates, and that will flatten it out. So you can see I'm trying to fix it there. So now we're going to use 2 colors of Distress Oxide to kind of do a little bit of a background, but I wanted it to be super, super light. So we used Speckled Egg, the new color of Distress Oxide, as well as Tumbled Glass. And I used my Rabbit Hole Designs cottontail blending brush to put on that ink. And I apologize, I apparently was inking very vigorously and the camera just kept shaking. So I don't know if I have to just readjust it or just try to be a little bit more gentle when I'm inking. When I do light colors, I feel like I have to go in with a heavy hand. So that's probably what it was. So now we're going to add a little bit of that tumbled glass around the edges. Again, I just wanted it to be a very, very light coloring on the outside, barely any color on this at all. So I'm going to clean off my work surface because I don't want to make a mess. And then we're going to go to the next step. So I actually took my Honeybee towel and wiped off that, just some of the distress ink that got on top of it. However, the ink underneath wasn't totally dry, so it smudged a little bit, but we'll fix that. Don't worry about it. Now we're going to take some MFT. This is Sweet Tooth Pigment ink, which is a white ink, and we're going to use the MFT Spotlight stencil. and go over top of the tree. I wanted to make it look like there was a ray of sunshine coming down onto the tree. And it gave the effect that I wanted to. I actually had to go back in with the stencil and make the top a little bit bigger because I had left the top didn't go to the very top. The top of the spotlight didn't go all the way to the top of the card. And I apologize, you can't really see it. In person, you can see it and it gives a really cool effect, but it's hard to tell on camera. I think you might be able to see in the pictures better. There you go, you can see it there. I didn't even line it up very good. It's a little bit off to the right. But again, this is a handmade card. So I'm just buffing off the excess ink, distress ink from the top of it. It also takes off some of the Concord and 9th ink, but again, it's totally fine. We'll be able to fix it all in the end and you won't be able to tell. So now I'm taking my Marvy Snow marker and drawing in snow at the bottom. So I'm just pressing down and letting the ink flow out, letting it kind of bubble at that, like make a thicker layer of snow on the bottom. So I'm going to cover the entire bottom of the tree, and this will help cover up some of the areas that kind of got smudged. You can see like right above my hand where that kind of the tree branches kind of dip in, you can kind of see the green spread into the distress oxide. So I'm going to take the pen and just kind of draw a little bit of snow on the branches. In the end, I go back in and put some snow with the white pen that I have, the white gel pen that I have. Just to make it look like it's snowing. But I thought that just adding the snow to the tree, and this will give it some dimension, would just add a little bit of texture to the whole entire thing, because it's a pretty plain card other than, you know, having just the tree on there. So just went in and just made sure I added a little bit of snow to both sides of the tree. And now we are going to get ready to take the heat gun and then we're going to heat it up. And this is my favorite part. And I apologize, you probably can't really see a lot of this, but this is where the snow puffs up and it is such a cool effect. So I think you can see some of it as we go along. I think the bottom you'll probably be able to see a little bit better as I start to see. There you go. You can see that snow puffing up and it just has such, there you can see that effect right there. It's so cool to watch it in person. I did go back and add a little bit of the snow marker to the tree, just to give it a little bit more snow, but I did not record that. So now we're going to be using another stamp set from Honeybee Stamps, and it is a sentiment stamp, and I believe it's called Believe. Yes, it's called Believe, and it's going to say, believe in the miracle of believe in the magic of Christmas. So I'm going to ink that up with the darker of the two colors, which is the clover. And again, I'm going to use that Stamp-A-Majig tool to kind of go over it. I do have to stamp it a couple times, again, because these are newer stamps. You know, there's probably a little bit of film on them, and I do stamp it a couple times, which is why I tend to use my MISTI when I do this. So it stamps really nicely, and it almost looks like it's a black ink, but it's not. So there is the sentiment on the inside. And then we're going to get ready to use the ATG gun to put tape on the back of the piece of the cardstock that we created, the Bristol smooth cardstock. Now I use ATG because I want a lot of tape on there, and I do use a lot of tape on this because it is warped from the heat embossing. So you are going to see that I use more tape than normal. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't smushing any of that snow. I think I did a little bit, so I tried not to put too much pressure on it. You probably could have used wet glue and just held it up in the air if you didn't want to smush it down too much. But you can see I got a little bit of white on the on my glass media mat. So just lining it up to make sure there's even border on all four sides. And I feel like right now it's a little bit plain, so I'm trying to figure out what to do. So I took my white gel pen, which is a Uniball Signo broad pen in white. And I just drew little dots of snowflakes all over and a little bit on the front of the tree, just to add a little bit of texture to the background again, because I thought that the card was a little bit plain and just needed to add something to it. And I'm loving adding snow to my cards. So that's it for the card. Thank you guys so much for watching. Here are some still pictures of it. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them below in the comment section. And I will see you guys again real soon for another video.